Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of A Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth. I'm your host, James Cordner, and I have a very special guest this evening. First, I want to touch base on, well, we're not streaming on the network tonight, the One Great Work Network at onegreatworknetwork.com. We're unable to connect to that tonight, so that's not a big deal. We're going to push through. It's going to be okay. We're going to survive on our own for a little bit. And then other than that, I mean, I want to make sure everybody knows to go to seedtruth.com for the Seed 5 conference. Get over there, check that out. We're actually just added a couple more speakers to the conference coming up in September. That's September 23rd and the 24th of this year. All-star lineup of speakers and everything like that. But we are a little behind schedule this evening, so I just want to bring him in right away. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Vinny Eastwood. Vinny, how are you this evening? Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see me again too, because I feel like sometimes I'm just sort of disappearing. Yeah, that's what happens when you get deplatformed. I'm still really pissed about that.
As you should be.
I don't know what it was like. Jordan Peterson was talking about how anybody who's been deplatformed, they take it like a life-threatening illness, and it feels about right.
Tell me more about that. Like, how's the recuperation going? Like, I know that you've been making progress. Is the project complete about like uploading everything to your website? I know that you've had a team or maybe a one-person team and yourself like doing that project. How's that going?
Well, I mean, the archives are complete back to 2016. So that's about half of them done. However, those are only the ones that can be found, and the majority of my stuff was never archived in the first place. So it's like, yeah, I'd probably say I have lost about 90, 95, 98% of all the work that I've ever done. And the few percent that are back up now kind of thing are basically on platforms that nobody's going to see kind of at all. So that's a very difficult thing to deal. Sorry, I'm getting calls from people here trying to get the live stream on the way there. So just give me a moment here, guys. I don't know what's going on actually. So yeah, please just. I'm having a very bad day. In fact, I'm having a very bad week. In fact, I'm having a very bad month. In fact, I'm having a bad year. In fact, I'm having a very bad third year in a row. And for the last year in New Zealand, it has rained every day.
Oh,
it's been a year-long monsoon, and it is driving me absolutely batty. And I have no idea what to do about it. And it's just like, what can you do about the weather other than geoengineer it, which I can't afford to do? There was actually a what's it called? A wedding company. They do like glam weddings type thing. And one new service that they are offering for their weddings is to guarantee no rain on your wedding day using cloud seeding and so on and so forth. That's a trip.
Yeah, it's right out in the open, but geoengineering doesn't exist, Vinny. Come on. You know that.
Yeah. I mean, that's what they like us to say. It's just like, oh, a lot of people talk about the weather, but nobody can really do anything about it. So, really? And it's been raining for so long that the other day I went out for a walk and, on the sidewalk, when it's dry, like there's no water on the sidewalk. It's not slippery and wet, So I'm just going to have to mute my cell phone and stuff. The producer keeps freaking texting me. It's just, I can't deal with it right now today. Yeah, I'm coming apart at the seams here, in every way that a man can be attacked and destroyed. That is what's happened to me. And I don't know what to do about it. I'm not sure if there is anything I can do about it. It's just more the fact that hey, Vinny, you've got no help, you've got no money, your relationship is difficult, your baby is taking all your time, you're going to jail, and everything you've ever worked for in the entire truth movement for the last 15 years before anybody got off their ass and started telling the truth is gone, and nobody wants to know you, and nobody cares what you've done for the people of New Zealand. And they just want you to do better and work harder while you've got a really bad liver problem and are very depressed and find it hard to get out of bed in the morning and have like virtually no energy to speak of, and having negative thought cycles just over and over again, ruminating in your mind. Like this is what happens, I think, if you're stupid enough to think that you can make a difference with the truth. I mean, you will make a difference, yeah, because your life will change for the worse in every conceivable way possible. In every way. I can't look in any direction in my life or in my mind or in my body and not see stuff that's going really wrong in every direction. So, like, this episode is called The Art of Persistence Part 2. And you know how the sequel's always a lot harder to take than the original,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But do you ever stop to think that maybe, like, that feeling of like not really making a difference, and the only difference is like in your own life and everything like that, it's only because of how hard you've pushed for years on end, and the pushback that you're getting is like the control structure's natural reaction to somebody who's actually speaking enough truth that would actually be able to resonate with people and actually start something. So of course they're going to kneecap a guy like you in the fashion that they did, to kind of put you into this, try to put you into a mentality such as the one that you're going through right now. So that way they just take the rug out from you once and for all. And and I understand the walls closing in feeling. Perhaps I can really relate to you on that. If that's what you're describing, if that's a way that I could, speak it back to you. But I would definitely encourage you to not give them what they want, because they want people like you that know what's going on, who have been working tirelessly for over a decade of their life to be shut up. They want them to stop talking.
I mean, they don't have to shut you up. I've been doing broadcasts since day one of getting arrested and banned from the internet and deplatformed and all of that kind of stuff. The difference is that nobody hears anything that I say anymore. All right, because all the methodologies by which they could know that I exist have all gone. Right? Shadow banning, deplatform, demonetization. Before, you could be seen by hundreds of people live during a show and have 2,000 views before the show ends, and you could make $3,000 a month off of YouTube and maybe another $2,000 a month off of Patreon. So you'd have an extra $5,000 US a month to live off on top of regular donations. Now you get $0. You get maybe 100 views, about a dozen people watching at any one time. And I think that's about it. And also most of the shows that you do, if somebody so much as mentions the V word, you have to delete it off of that. And the only platforms you have left, almost nobody's on those platforms, right? And the search parameters for videos are terrible. And you have to start a following from scratch, because all the people who used to follow you through various other platforms, they were never told that you got deleted. They would just be sitting there wondering for years, in some cases, where you went. They wondered and never bothered to once, not once, pull out any kind of search engine on any browser and search the term Vinny Eastwood and find my website, thevinnyeastwoodshow.com, which is getting all these things archived and are available there for people to listen to in MP3 on 3 or 5 different platforms and things of that nature, live and whatnot. But nobody bothers to do that. Nobody. I don't know of a single person that's ever contacted me saying, Vinny, I wondered why you'd been deleted or something like that, and I bothered to search for you to see if you were still broadcasting somewhere. Nobody. And that's what happens when you've got a following on platforms like YouTube, which are the most powerful and most used platforms, because everybody just expects to get everything on there handed to them. And so when the time comes when somebody they do like and do support isn't there anymore, they don't even notice, mostly. And if they do notice, it doesn't spur them to do anything about it. So, like, yeah, I mean, I think James Corbett in 2018, 2019, when all this deplatforming and demonetization was just becoming a thing, he was correct. He says the info war is over. We lost. Convince me otherwise. And I'm inclined to agree that he's absolutely bang on the money on this. I mean, Alexander Solzhenitsyn's book, The Gulag Archipelago, was not in print in Russia. There were 10 copies of it. 10 copies. Just a big stack of papers and things like that. 1,000-page book or something. And people had to read it in a day and pass it on to somebody else in order for that information to get out. And they estimate those 10 copies had been read by millions of Russians. Okay? That's the situation that we're in now. We're in communist Russia, and to have information like this can get you killed, right? It's like that, but in a digital way. You don't get killed for putting this information out, unless you do it really well. You just get silenced, right? And in your silencing, you can sometimes, maybe lesser people who don't know what they're fighting for, who don't know what the stakes are, will be overwhelmed by the terrible loss of their life's work and their ability to earn a living and the reason for what they do. But not me. I didn't give up, and I'm not going to. I said for a long time it doesn't really matter whether I'm successful or not. I assume that I won't be. You know, my goal is to try and stop humanity getting enslaved and subsequently exterminated by ruthless criminal sociopathic scumbaggery. And, you know, I'll keep doing that until I'm dead, regardless of whether or not I don't like doing it anymore, regardless of whether or not it isn't worth my time, regardless of whether or not I get any recognition for doing it or any help from my peers in the New Zealand alternative media when something bad happens to me. Okay? And that's basically what I'm going through. And it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. The truth is the truth. And many people throughout history have been persecuted for speaking it. It's just the gig. That's why there's so few of us doing it, because it takes a very special kind of person, somebody who's willing to lose an arm and a leg so that they can live with the other arm or leg free.
Oh, I was muted. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you know that you are getting some help from some friends and companions down there in New Zealand, though. I hope.
Not really. I mean, I've got a couple of donors and a mod or two in the chat. But as far as, you know, local alternative media and stuff like that, we've had Liz Gunn, who's part of Free New Zealand. She's been making big waves over here in New Zealand, even got herself noted by the Alex Jones show. She won't answer my calls or talk to me or interview me. There was Counterspin Media, who also got on the Alex Jones show as well, hosting their own segment on it. And, you know, they talk to me and stuff like that, but they mostly ask me for things like Mark Passio's contact or or Santos Bonacci's contact. It's very one way. And those are the two biggest ones. The other people we had Karina Ruiz from Truth Bomb. She was very helpful outside the court one day that we were down there, and now she's quitting the Truth Movement because she doesn't like the infighting and abuse. And then there was Sue and Kiwi who came down and helped cover our court case a little bit, and they were mostly working up at what's it called, Marsden Point Refinery, and that's been shut down, and they're off there. And I haven't really seen a terribly large amount from them. And we've had Brad Flutie up there with the people at Marsden Point. This is our last refinery in New Zealand that they just packed up and destroyed. And now we've got no refineries in New Zealand to refine any oil or gas. And he's been arrested for not wearing a mask, and he might be going to jail for that. And Billy TK, my mate, he's probably been the most support out of anything. And I wasn't allowed to call him for over a year after we got arrested. We were banned from contacting each other. So it's just a long list of names of everybody who's either done a tiny little bit or done nothing at all. And it just seems like I can't blame them, because they've got so much on their plates respectively, as we all do.
Yeah.
And what I should be doing, instead of grouching on them and stuff like that, is just giving them praise. Thank you for helping other people and doing your work, and Vinny's chop liver. That's the thing, bro. It's very sad. I feel very depressed today. This is not a great show. I'm sorry. It's just, yeah.
It is, because it's real, and people need to hear the real. They need to hear the real, raw aspects of other people's lives. And it is that kind of show this evening. And I mean, on a brighter side, you and I haven't had much chances to really speak to one another. You've been busy. You've had a child come into your world, into your life, you and your partner. And I've got my own children, and so we're just two guys, living our lives and doing dad stuff and dealing with other shit too. But I did want to give you a very sincere show of gratitude and just say, you know what, man, thank you so much for participating in Shattering the Illusion last year. It was great. And you knocked it out of the park with your show of your studio and how to set up a live stream, and your participation in the conference that I organized with Joe. I really wanted to make sure I said thank you to you for that, because sometimes text messages aren't enough. So, now we're face to face, and I wanted to make sure I got that in there. And, and we talked shortly before that conference, and I remember some of the details of that, but then, now we're here, and it's almost a year later, and you're dealing with an appeals process now, right?
Yeah.
So, let's catch up to speed. What has happened? Like, what has gone on since? So I remember the last time we spoke on air together, you were still, I think, not even allowed to talk to Billy. And so that's been resolved. So let's go from there. What's been going on? What are they trying to put you through?
Well,
and hold on. One quick caveat or a little primer for people that may not know exactly what's going on. Either go back and watch the part 1 of The Art of Persistence with Vinny Eastwood that we did last year, or just understand that Vinny, well, why don't you give us just a quick synopsis of what happened? Because I don't want to put words in your mouth or get it wrong.
Well, I'm an activist journalist for 15 years, done more than anybody in New Zealand will ever do. for the truth movement in terms of getting activist voices out there. And in 2021, on August 18th, I made the foolish mistake of trying to protest this government and a brand new lockdown that they called on everybody with, I think, about 16 minutes notice. And we got arrested, held for 28 hours without charge, and then we were facing 6 months prison for peacefully protesting, and also 3 months prison for remaining silent in custody. We were banned from the internet, banned from talking to each other, and banned from leaving the house, and banned from having a mobile phone. And that happened for about 6 weeks until we spent about $20,000 getting the lawyers in and out of court in order to get those bail conditions undone. And we're now 2 years later, and we've been sentenced to 3 months prison for myself, 4 months prison for Billy, sentenced. And this is what the appeal is about, because the law is very straightforward. If you break the law, the judge, whoever is there, can do whatever they want as long as it's within the law. And the maximum punishment for breaching lockdown was 6 months prison. So we got like 90% of the maximum-ish, you know. And so we're going to appeal on the 31st. That's in a little under 2 weeks. And if it's not successful, I'm going to be going to jail for 3 months. Well, I got a 6-month-old boy here, and with my ex-partner Sarah, she's got my daughter Alina up north in Whangarei, and I won't be able to keep up the child support payments or keep doing calls and things like that with my daughter if I'm put in prison. So it's going to make life a much extra harder for them, as well as for my partner Rebecca and my son Alfie, who'll be 6 months of age if I go to prison on the 31st. He'll just turn 36 months the next day on the 1st of August. And yeah, I'm really concerned about that, you know, because this doesn't just affect me. It affects so many people. And also I remember when I got banned from the internet and stuff like that, there are a lot of people who listened to my show and Billy's show who had to endure lockdown without our voices. And that was really tough for them, I hear. A lot of them got depressed and things like that. But luckily, in the 6 weeks that we were banned, about maybe 10 or 20 other voices just appeared out of nowhere. And by the time our ban was lifted, they already had bigger followers, list of followers that we did, with no track record and almost no knowledge of the New World Order. Just everybody just jumped ship. Well, we can't watch these guys anymore. Let's go watch these people. And they never came back. So, yeah. Oh, and my band left as well. Yeah. Right after I got arrested and banned from the internet, my band broke up. So, yeah, it's like having everything that meant anything to you in the course of 2 years basically taken away in every sort of meaningful way. And now just sitting in limbo, expecting to go to prison for peacefully protesting in the middle of the day, trying to save people's lives because lockdowns were killing people. You know, people were committing suicide because of them. Even in Billy's hometown, this 14-year-old girl hung herself on the day the lockdown was announced. You know, but we deserve to go to jail because we endangered the public. We didn't hurt anybody. We didn't damage anybody's property. But because we didn't do what we were told by the media and the government, we're criminals. We're actual criminals who deserve to go to jail with other dangerous people who are so dangerous that you can't allow them to be out in society because society would suffer. That's how dangerous we are, apparently.
And I've seen the tapes. You have it. You have that mini doc about the day the day you got arrested for this protest. There's a lot of footage, and it almost looks to me like the only people that are even on that street that day were the ones that were there to protest this lockdown. Is that true?
Pretty much. I mean, what about 80, 90 people? Less than 100 anyway. Because this is a level 4 lockdown, very serious. you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
four. Uh,
Oh, sorry.
yeah. Oh, it's level 4.
Not level 3.
You can't even get drive-through in level 4, bro.
Certainly
Mhm.
not level 2. Certainly
Yeah.
not level 3. Level 4.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I have a question. Um, if you were to gather up a group of people that wanted to do this voluntarily today and do the same exact thing today, is there any risk of you being arrested?
If I did it, there's no current bail conditions forbidding me from doing it, so technically I could. However, it would look bad in the eyes of, whatever judge we get on the appeal or whatever. So
Well, let me
effectively, I was silenced, by this whole thing because, right after we were arrested for protesting, a bunch of people thought, "Hey, we'll protest too on Parliament ground with tents. That'll solve the whole problem." What are you gonna do about the, hundreds of police officers with, riot shields, uh,
baton.
and gear and things like that? We're gonna hold hands and, sing peace and love and hope they go away. That that's your plan? Okay, guys, I'm pretty sure you haven't, I don't know, studied recent history. There's these guys, Vinny Eastwood, Billy TK. You saw what happened to them? Yeah, they got arrested for protesting lockdown. Okay, just back up 1 second. Got arrested for protesting lockdown. What do you think the government's going to do to you if you're protesting their mandates? Do you think they're going to listen to you? Nope. Actually, they're going to sign a secret compact pledging to each other, all the House of Parliament, that they're not going to speak to any of the protesters. Do you think they're going to give you a fair shake or allow you to continue doing your protest? No, they're not. They're going to use EMF and sound weapons on you. I'm going to make you sick for 6 weeks. And they're going to arrest you. And they're going to break your sternums and your hips and knock you out cold on the ground and spray old ladies in the face with pepper spray. Okay? There is no peaceful resistance that is allowed anymore in New Zealand. The government has proved that. There's a lot of people who've done little protests that have had basically no media attention and had no effect whatsoever. And that's the way the government wants protests to be. But if you're in the spotlight, you're making a big mess and you're making some noise, they won't let it happen. Okay? They will allow you to do it for as long as it takes them to get rid of you. There is no peaceful ways of resisting the New Zealand government because they are uncivil in all of the ways with which they conduct the contest of freedom. Okay? They've declared war on the New Zealand public. Each and every one of us is now, as far as the government is concerned, a potential enemy combatant. If you've ever listened to my show, or yours, James, or anybody else, you're on a list. Okay? The list of people who aren't allowed jobs anymore. The list of people who aren't allowed to stay where they want anymore. The list of people whose mortgages are going to be rolled back. You see what I'm saying? They've got us. They really do in this country. And that's the reason why I'm using, luckily I haven't burned any bridges with my American brethren. So I'm still able to call and ask them for help. But again, what difference does it make? I think Stefan Verstappen was right where he says the New World Order is successful and they're going to be. Okay. We are going to have a world government and it will be by conquest, not consent. And the only thing is in limbo right now is how much time do we still have before they do it? And number two, have we set up our own independent organizations that are under the radar whereby we don't starve to death, freeze to death, or die of thirst
Yeah.
or sickness in the meantime while there is a new world order? Under the radar, bro. Under the radar. Going out publicly protesting, I was an idiot. Okay? An idiot. Trying to get media attention and stuff like that. I did. What did it achieve? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Getting arrested achieves nothing. Okay? What really achieves something is not needing the government for anything anymore and being completely independent outside of their purview. And that's a lot easier said than done. They're closing off all the little highways of information and all of the possible ways by which you might be able to make a living. You're going to get rid of cash essentially. So if they just don't like what you say at anything, they'll just turn your bank accounts off and you're going to starve to death. You got
Yep.
nothing. All right.
Yep.
So this is the situation that we're in. And stupidly, I'm still painting a target on my back by daring to speak out to it, to audiences of maybe a dozen people who probably won't do anything about it, and maybe a few hundred on from there who won't finish watching the video and then won't do anything about it. All right. This is my effective form of resistance, right? I'm sorry to be this cynical about it, but I've just been doing it for too long to see any of the methodologies that I've been using the entire time while I've been doing this work. And so I've basically abandoned faith and hope in myself and everything I've ever done. All right. And now I'm just going through this big rework, Vinny Mark II. And goodness knows how that's going to happen, because in the meantime, I've got 10 simultaneous life crises going on at the same time.
Yeah.
For most people, one would just destroy them, and I'm dealing with 10, and I'm still working on and telling the truth and stuff. So I don't know how I'm doing it. I think it's because I just don't have a choice. I don't know what else to do.
Well, keeping up with doing that is the right choice. Even, man, I want to tell you that I did a 90-day sentence at one time in my life, and I'm not trying to comfort you, but from experience of having done a 90-day sentence, it was over it was over fairly quickly. In the moment, it sucked, but looking back on it, it was a tough 3 months, but it was over pretty quickly. And so there's that. But I mean, as far as the continuing of speaking truth, is saying, that you're being cynical and stuff like that, of course you're finding yourself in that kind of mode. What else are you supposed to do? Pretend that everything? No, this is the part about speaking truth that is cynical. When the truth is a bad scene, you have to describe it the way that it is, and it can come across cynical. It can come across like, oh, everything looks like, well, I'll just describe cynical in different words, but you get what I'm saying. So don't beat yourself up, brother. You're just accurately describing the things that are happening around you and the things that you're dealing with right now in this section of your life, in this stretch of your life going into the future. It really is just a matter of working it out and getting through and tackling one of those crises at a time. And, the inevitable one is coming your way if the appeal doesn't go through. So, I mean, at least you don't have to worry about, if the appeal doesn't go through, then at least it's happening. And there's an alleviation of stress in one way, but also a different kind of stress in another, where it's like the free floating anxiety of whether or not this thing is going to happen to you disappears, because now you know whether or not it's going to happen to you. Okay. And then you have to deal with whatever comes your way after that. And you're a tough dude. You've been doing this job for a long time, and people like you. That's why I've called this the art of persistence. It just seems like you don't know how to give up. You don't know how to quit, and the shit life throws at you is a test, and you're passing. You just need to see it that way, where it's like, this is just a test. That's all it is. I'm not in your shoes.
Yeah,
I want to be sensitive to that. I'm not in your shoes, but I also, I can also empathize. I can imagine having children, I did my 90 days way long ago, way long ago. And I didn't have kids at that time, but I can definitely put myself in those shoes. Like if that were to be coming down coming my way like tomorrow, oh my God, I would be a mess, and on top of the financial struggles and all the other things, like I would be an absolute fucking disaster of a mess. So I can, I feel you, man. I feel your pain, and it's good to get it out because keeping it all up inside of your head is not solving any issues. It's just going to create more chaos, like a tornado inside your brain. And, I don't know.
What's problematic is that's what's talking about the problems themselves also does. Like people in relationships who just talk about their problems, with a guidance counselor or something like that, all they're doing is talking about their problems. They're never actually solving anything. They're never actually getting anywhere. So the whole idea is to break things down into small little chunks and things like that and just dealing with them that way. NASA has regardless of what you feel about NASA, and my feelings towards them aren't that great, but they did have one good thing on them, and that says when the astronauts have a problem on the space shuttle, they're supposed to make a list of all the problems that there are, classified from the easiest to solve to the hardest to solve. And you run down the list sequentially, solving all the easiest ones first, so that by the time you've got down to the hard ones, you don't have anything else to distract you. Right? I thought this was a pretty great methodology.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it's things that can only be fixed one at a time. And so that means you have to wait until you roll through that list. And that depends if you're actually trying to fix it or if you're too stressed or traumatized or whatever to, like me, to give up your bad habits and do your self-proud and that kind of thing. And more to the point, that whole thing where somebody complains about the stuff that's happening to them, and usually the first response they get is, hey, man, everybody's got problems, And I think that's because not only is society so screwed right now that everybody's got problems, but people are so narcissistic and so lacking in empathy that anybody who doesn't have any problems, they literally couldn't care if they wanted to, like actually care, Like it's very, very difficult to be up in emotion and things like that with things that are happening to other people, unless it's on a movie and you've got some music to hype it up and some great actor to sell it to you or whatnot. Pain and suffering is not something that really people want to deal with in reality. And namely, that's because they've got their own pain and suffering that they're not dealing with. The reason why everybody has addictions, according to Barry Cooper, the most decorated narcotics enforcement officer of all time in the United States, he said this to me. He said, all those people that are addicts, as you call them, are just people with unresolved trauma. Okay? And I spoke to a man named Brendan Pascoe the other day. He ran a restaurant in here called Lone Stars. Great restaurant. And it was part of a franchise here in New Zealand. And then the franchise, because he wouldn't take the thingies or get his staff to take them, they revoked his franchiseship. So he lost his business and then he lost his home. And now he's on the sickness benefit. All right. He working his entire life and had everything taken from him. And he goes out and he talks to his old mates, he hadn't seen them in years. And when he said that he was on the benefit, he went, oh, well, I don't want to offend you, but I can't stand those people who take stuff off the government and don't work, if they can. And he's like, well, I fully agree with you. And then later on the night, he says, but how would you feel about how we feel about people like you? People who we laid down everything we had and lost all of it for you and your freedom and the freedom of your children to come. And not only did you not help, not only did you not even notice that we were sacrificing everything we had for you. You actually hate us and think you're better than us and smarter than us because you did something we know for a fact would have been bad for us. We knew for a fact would have been bad for you, that we warned you about, and you didn't listen. Imagine what we think about you.
Oh man, you know, there are a lot of people that I'm seeing getting on this train now, that it's like that it's acceptable, you know, to criticize the medical establishment, to criticize governments and everything for their reaction toward the coof and all the BS that followed. And you know, there were some of us. This is just me. I mean, this is a person like me who, for a minute there, was like, "Oh my God, is this really happening?" Uh, I have a small child, you know, my wife. Let's just play it safe for a minute, and then quickly it became apparent that it was all a bunch of bullshit. And then there are people that went the full swing, 3 years of wearing masks, getting all the MAGA jabs in the world, and all their Brandon boosters, all of it, everything. And now they're like, why are my people, like, why is everyone dying? Like, you know, and it's like, I have no patience for these fucking people anymore. You know, and now they want to criticize. Now they want to do the same thing that, you know, people like you. I was a few minutes late to the party, but not as late to the party as the rest of these people. I got to stand up for myself with this. I started speaking out about it as well, about I would say about June of 2020, you know, because it's like, okay, like, all right, the margins of let's play it safe, it's over now, right? It's fucking over now. All right, yeah, whatever. I never got this whole 2 weeks off from work or anything like that. Not that I really should have, because there was nothing wrong to begin with. Everything was fine. You know, I would have been fine. I was fine. I'll tell you what, like, I don't know if I'm really sidetracking here too much, but I did get sick with something that I've never felt that way before in my entire life. So many different weird ailments. But anyways, that might be a different conversation altogether. But I wanted to just like reinforce what you were saying about these, you know, fair weather people that are just like all of a sudden out of nowhere coming out of the woodwork being like, yeah, this sucks. And it's like, no, fuck you, dude. Where were you? Now that it's socially acceptable, where were you? Where were you when you would lose your job for this shit? Were you ready to lay down? Hey, no, no.
There's a bad kitty.
Like, were you ready to lay down your livelihood for this? Possibly be homeless with children for this? You know, hey, Star Wars.
You might have to jump up and get him off of there, man. He looks persistent. Those eyes, they've got some tenacity.
But I mean, he's awesome. There he goes. There he goes. All right, but you know, these I was saying is that, you know, where were you when it counted? You know, where were you when your voice would have actually been would have amounted to something in the vast sea of masked up sheep? There were very few of us that had our faces exposed, saying, "This isn't right. Something is very, very wrong about what's going on here." And we were the ones told to shut the fuck up. Why don't you just do what everyone else is doing? Well, geez, I don't know. Maybe because the same people that are now telling me to follow the crowd and do what everyone else was doing. And here in this part of the country where I grew up in, we were told not to succumb to peer pressure. We were told if your friends jumped off a bridge, would you jump off that bridge with them? In a way to say, think for yourself. Question authority. Think for yourself. Don't do things just because everyone else is doing them. Don't follow the crowd. And then all of that goes right out the window. The same mentors that brought me and other kids like me up with that kind of creed were now telling us that just shut the fuck up and do what you're told. And where we're, you know, and now you're like, oh, I always knew something was wrong. Well, you didn't do anything at the moment. Strike when the iron is hot, as they would say. and you let that moment go, and now we're in such a people are dying, and quite frankly, they and I don't care who this offends, but they at this point they fucking deserve it. You know, I
That's
don't.
what
I have
that's what
no.
I was having a conversation with a family member, and they said, "Look, if you're dumb enough, out of all the available information that is out there, and out of all the obvious human behaviors to look for warning signs, if you're dumb enough to go ahead and do that, you do deserve to die. All right? If anything, it's cleaning out the human race. What if the elite were right that there are too many people? But not that there's just too many people, there's too many order following jellyfish people. All right. And they all need to be wiped out. The elite, are thinking of this. And, back in the day, I thought that seemed really unfair and really tyrannical. But now I'm starting to see the wisdom in it.
Dude, just this past, like, I think this past week, this bullshit vice president of ours, Kamala Harris, has said something about reducing the population so that the future kids have clean air to breathe. It's like right out in the open. It made me think of this episode of this show called Electric Sheep. It's based off of Philip K. Dick novels or novellas, whichever, stories, short stories. So, like, do androids dream of electric sheep being, what's that movie?
Blade Runner.
Yeah, sorry, Blade Runner, exactly. But so Electric Sheep is this show that's based off of Philip K. Dick novels. But there's one episode in particular called Kill All Others, KAO. And the scene is this regular working guy. It takes place in America, I think California. And in this dystopian future, Central America, Canada, and America, they're all one government now. And
the cat's going to scratch the thing again.
He's a nuisance. This is what I do. Starbucks, please stop doing that. But I back to the story is, so this politician who's running for president, but she's the only candidate, right? Of course. And of these three countries that have come together to form one, and so we get hints of globalism in that idea. But she's doing this interview, and like she's like talking about all of these policies that she wants to enact, and oh yeah, we're gonna make the schools better, and we're gonna fix all the bridges, and the infrastructure needs help, and we're gonna make sure people get the internet and all of these things, and kill all others, of course, and then she just breezes right by. She says, "Kill all others," of course, and then just breezes right by it, and no one stops her and is like, "Wait a minute, what did you just say?" And this guy, the main character of the episode, is watching this on television, and he's like, "Whoa, what?" And so he goes and goes through this episode about like who are the others, and people start killing each other over this, and it's like, oh, he's an other, get him. And he's like, I don't even know what I did. He finds this person getting chased across the street, and he's like stops his car and gets out, and he's like, hey, what are you guys doing? What did that woman do? Why are you beating her? What are you doing? And they're like, she's an other. And then he's like, wait, this isn't right. He goes, this isn't right. Don't do this. And a police officer comes up, and he's like, officer, they're just assaulting this woman. And I even think the officer goes, oh, she's an other. And then they all go and they look at him and they go, are you an other too? Maybe you're an other. And he's like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. So he goes, anyways, but this is like oddly similar. Reduce population. Like, what? Like, all right, who gets to decide who stays and who goes? But you don't have the right to do that. I mean, I don't have to tell you, but they don't have the right to do that kind of thing. And
well, you don't have the right. It doesn't matter if you don't have the right if you've got the ability.
Sure.
I mean, psychopaths don't have the right to murder people and lie all the time and things like that and have no guilt about it whatsoever and no remorse. They don't have that right, but they can just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't like this guy right here. He's just going to go and
He
scratch
just
the
does not
couch.
have the right to scratch the couch, but he's still
That couch doesn't
do
belong to
it.
him, but he's
You
still
know?
going to do it. And he's going to be
He's breaking that cat is breaking natural law, and he's going to get some karma on it 9 times. You know.
But I mean, this is that was something that like was just kind of leaked out and said wide out in the open, you know. And I think what I was trying to get to is like harkening back to something that we were talking about before about, you know, oh, now it's convenient to speak up now, you know, and when all the evidence was right in front of your face to begin with. Like there was some hardcore evidence out there pretty early on in the you know, the pandemic there, and all the bullshit about like what was really going on and with the shots and everything, which are completely safe and effective, I have to say, you know.
We actually have to say,
Yeah. they're completely safe and effective, you know, and there's nothing wrong with them at all. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But
I mean, they're safe for the people who are delivering them, and they're effective on the people they're giving them to. You know, they're not lying. They're just using a little bit of word play.
it's word magic. It's word magic. Safe and effective. All right. Who's being made safe, and what kind of effect are you really putting out there, right? Because there's many different effects, right? It could be effective at killing people. They didn't say what it was effective for. You know, they're trying to say it's for this, you know, whatever. But there are people that are like, oh, we didn't know. You know, we didn't know that we were at risk of getting, you know, heart problems and all this stuff going on. It's like, well, I seem to remember forwarding to a lot of people a Solari report by Catherine Austin Fitts saying, you know, they aren't giving you informed consent at the doctors about this. So here we've written up a informed consent form that family members can share with one another. So at least you and your family know that, like, yeah, I'm going to these doctors. They're going to do this procedure, and I know what the risks are, even if the doctors aren't telling you. As a family unit, you gather around as family units should, and you share information with one another. That was something that Catherine Austin Fitts put out in early 2021, I believe. I heard about it on Grand Theft World. Richard Grove hosted Catherine Austin Fitts back in the early days of Grand Theft World, and they talked about this form. So I got it. I got a hold of the form, and I forwarded it out to just about everybody on my friends list on Facebook, because, you know, that's a lazy, easy way to distribute that kind of information for me at the time. Certainly had nothing like this going on. I didn't have a website at the time, nothing like that, no wide reach, but I wanted to look out for my friends and family. There were people that said, I'm not going to read that. There were people that just straight up ignored it. And some of those people these days, I hear, aren't doing so well. And it's like, yo, I tried to warn you. I tried to help you. I tried to get you to think for yourself instead of just go with the crowd. But you went with the crowd. And look what happened.
Yeah. The great thing is our conscience is clear, and we don't have to feel any guilt because we did everything we could. All right. Everything was reasonable, at least. We didn't run around shaking people in the street. Oh my God, the invaders have come, you know. But snap out of it. You know.
Like that Batman meme.
Oh, yeah. You know, we didn't do enough. You know, whatever we didn't do nothing. But however much we did, it wasn't enough. Not against the juggernaut we were up against. Nobody has ever, in the history of the planet, 100 million years of unrecorded history, has anybody ever faced an enemy that well financed, that well organized, with that much heavy influence in everybody's homes, in everybody's car, on everybody's phone, and inside every man's mind. Okay.
Yep.
Nobody has ever had to combat something like that before. And surprise, surprise, we didn't win. You know, it's just like getting in the ring with Muhammad Ali when you're a 4-year-old boy. He's gonna beat the crap out of you.
Hopefully not.
Okay, and it's like, kid, don't feel so hard on yourself. That was the champ. Okay, the freaking champ. Do you have any idea how many people who know what makes you tick they paid to come up with this plan to mess with your mind? And you have any idea why? There were so few of us who were stalwart, immovable. Okay? There's a reason why that is because we're different. Okay? There's a certain percentage of people who can do certain things, and a huge percentage of people who can't do those things. Not that they won't, it's that they can't. If you have an IQ 20 points above somebody else, the things that you say and can understand, the other person will not even possess the physical capability of comprehending no matter what you explain to them. Okay? And the majority of the population has an IQ of 100 or under. All right, just think about that for a second. So that means for anybody who's 20 IQ points down, around about 80, that's like borderline retarded, they will not be able to understand what ordinary people can understand. And ordinary people cannot understand the things like you and I are saying. Okay? That's what's problematic about the situation. And I think that's why they came up with religion. Okay, there's a holographic fractal projection of collective consciousness out there, and it's making everything happen in a tumbling type fashion, so that all the actions that you have crossweave with the fabric of reality and come back again to affect other people in different ways. And you're saying this to people who are like, what? And they go, okay, there's a big guy, okay, and he's called God. All right, and if you don't do what he tells you to do, you're going to hell. Okay, that's it. Okay, the big God, he's all good, he's all powerful, and he does everything, and do what he tells you, or else bad things happen. Okay, do you understand that? Yeah. Oh my God, I love God so much. I feel his love. It's penetrating into my soul. It's just. This is how religion got started, in my opinion. I'm just riffing that off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure the Council of Nicaea in Rome was pretty much exactly like this, exactly like that.
Yeah. You're probably spot on with that, dude. That was awesome. Oh my God. And then they replace the old religions with new ones like statism, and here we are. And scientism, which is the religion that atheists practice, and here we are. And it's no wonder we're just. It's like if you, with everything that you were just describing, it's like if you reverse engineered this situation, it's like they've been planning it all along. Total domination of every individual on the planet.
Yeah. H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, they regarded us with cold minds, like somebody would study the organisms that crawl in a petri dish. No emotion, no care, just plotting, planning, because evil doesn't quit. Evil doesn't stop. It waits and it plans. Okay? And I think we've been predicated by a oversaturation of relaxation. Like, stuff is so easy right now. I remember talking to old people saying that they had to cycle 52 miles every day just to school and back, and what do kids have to do is now they complain that they have to get out of bed and go to a bus stop, I think 300 feet from their house. All right. Whoever we are now, and I include myself in this statement, we are far inferior in intellect, morality, and physicality than almost any generation before us. We may think we're smarter because we've got access to all the stuff that smarter people than us made, but you don't know how to make a cell phone. Even if I gave you the raw resources, you wouldn't know what to do with them. And we're living like in the ruins of an old world that had philosophers and intellectuals who people are still reading today, hundreds of years ago, having clearer thoughts than any of the philosophers we've got rolling around these days. All right. How did that happen? Well, it's because back in the day, your dad and your mum would read the Bible to you, and that's how you learned to read. You didn't have little colorful books with the big nut brown hare telling how much he loves little nut brown hare as high as he can hop or whatever. Okay. Just like, and Jesus went down this road towards Nazareth, and lo, the trail was blocked by a giant brontosaurus with a splinter in his paw. You know? You're like, wow, Dad, this is amazing. And it's like, yeah, Jesus was the man, son. And
the original, the man.
Yeah, he's good. Jesus is Lord. You know, it's just like, wait, hold on a second. I don't ever understood that. Like, if your dad made you something and then he had some other guy, all right, how is that other guy your dad? Right? I don't know.
Just
the whole Jesus is Lord thing. Is that the God that you pray to now? I thought God created him. You know, he's just like sent him down, jism in a virgin. You know, and then he's gone for 30 years. Nobody knows what the hell happened. But he come back and apparently he died for all of us. There's parts of the story I'm sure I've missed here, but I think that what happens is that there's only two ways that you can accomplish immortality. One is through your sons, and the other is through your stories. Okay? It's the only way that parts of you ever live forever, is if they're written down and people have derived real meaning from them. Because life, in terms of being a human, hasn't actually changed that much. I mean, sure, we've got aqueducts and medicine and education and wine and so on and so forth now that perhaps people didn't have back then, but you still got 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, a mouth, an asshole. You know, you've got this, you've got the same basic things that are pushing and pulling you in various directions. Okay, so the human condition hasn't actually changed much. But the situation where the human has been placed has changed massively. Okay? Could you imagine in ancient Rome if you got a text alert, the barbarians are coming? Holy shit!
We gotta get out of here.
Honey, put the kids up!
You're like,
where's the grain?
I just got a text. They're coming. They're coming.
Yeah, but nowadays it's completely different. Even though we're basically the same subset of biological cogs and bells and whistles, right? Yeah. Same people, different day. Okay, and we're just much worse now. We've gotten toxins and things like that into our diet and medicines for that matter. Back in the day, there was no medicine, you know, it was just like food, herbs, plants, things of that nature in certain combinations with each other or by themselves in certain levels of preparation. That was how people stopped themselves from dying. The only real difference that the medical system has really done is that your broken leg doesn't heal all crooked nowadays, because they figured out during the wars where people were breaking their legs and getting themselves blown apart and things of that nature, because all the doctors there had a lot of practice of doing all that pathological care. Or did I say pathological?
Allopathically?
Because that's the process of pathology. All right. And that's why they got good at it. But other than that, people say that we live longer now than they ever did back in the day. Not true. You're simply more likely to live through childhood. And judging by the amount of really stupid people out there, I think that might be a mistake. All right. There's a lot of people out there who, if they died at or near to birth like they did hundreds of years ago, there'd be a hell of a lot less stupid people on the roads. I guarantee you. All right. And they're very, like, you might lose a genius here or there, but hey, look, you can't argue with results. Look at the result that we've got now. We've got a whole bunch of doped up people waltzing around. It was like 30% of the United States population's on psych meds, probably very similar about New Zealand. That was the thing that enlightened me to this whole process in the first place. Everything Alex Jones was saying was going on in the United States. One of my activist friends would have told me this is happening in New Zealand without even having heard of Alex Jones themselves. It's the same plan absolutely everywhere we go. So what do you need the population to be? Above all, apathetic. Okay. Yeah. How do you do that? Well, the liver. You attack the liver. That's all you got to do. You got to make sure that they've got Wi-Fi radiation on them all the time, that they're always eating carbs, they're always having coffee, and they've always got some kind of sugary sweet nearby, or some kind of ciggy, or some kind of alcohol. All right? And that way, you can ensure that the liver will be constantly taking damage from 6 different factors that almost everybody does in their daily life. Why is that important? Because a damaged liver produces apathy. What can you do to a population that literally, physically cannot care? All right? The answer is anything you want. So if we have a completely toxified population, mind, body included, that's corrupted our souls, I believe. I think what if there's some truth to all these people with their past life regression principles and all this kind of crap? I don't really hold much stock in it myself, but it does make sense from a kind of spiritual perspective that, hey guys, we're here to learn some lessons, and we came here to learn them the hard way. So, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that that's an interesting point that you bring up. And like, I've been thinking a lot of the things that you've been saying, there are a lot less problems to solve these days, right? There's some of the things that we would be spending a lot of our time doing, those problems, like food and water, getting these resources for ourselves, our families, making sure that we're doing these small but huge things. Right? They seem small these days because of how easy it is to acquire those resources. But it's gotten a lot easier. So we have a brain that's literally like it is constructed to solve problems. And when all the problems have been solved, like what do we have left? Maybe we start creating problems for ourselves to solve them. Maybe we get apathetic because there's nothing for us to do. So, going along with what you were just explaining to me about the liver, maybe there's something going on upstairs as well. And there's plenty of problems to solve. It's just that large amount of people, the vast majority of people have been convinced that the largest problem of them all needs no solving, that you just go along with it and everything will be okay. And that's the illegitimate, immoral, organized crime, intergenerational organized crime syndicate known as government. You just go along with that. Everything's going to be fine. We're going to protect you. We're going to solve all your problems for you. You're going to be safe with mommy and daddy for the rest of your life because you're a baby and you failed at the one thing that you were brought here to do, which was to grow up and to self-actualize. And we're going to make sure that never happens. and we're going to keep you safe. Okay, little baby? And everyone goes, uh-huh. Yeah. And they clap like circus seals. And they,
I've seen it happen,
they
man.
won, you know? And it's a terrible thing. And that's the type of thing that largely, in my opinion, which I think I'm allowed to have, uh, that we need to start breaking people out of, is this mentality of dependency upon other. And it's like, no, like you should be dependent. Maybe certain people in your close circle, you all kind of team up on it and get tasks done. You endeavor to perform certain things and get projects done and stuff like that. Yeah, you depend on people to do those types of things. One man has a lot of trouble building a barn by himself, for instance, that type of thing. But and I'm trailing off here, but what I'm getting at is that like we need to solve this problem of like this dependency issue that we have on government, and then a lot of other things. And this is my opinion, they get solved very, very quickly, very easily.
Somebody asked me the other day, "Hey, Vinny, what would you do? Like, what's your plan?" And well, I mean, ultimately, if resources were not a factor, all right, you'd have to clean up the population. There's about 20 million individuals, give or take, on the planet that are just really, really bad people, and they've got a lot of power and influence and control. If they're gone, all of a sudden, things would just go straight back to normal very, very quickly because you'd have no plan to recover from that. And scumbaggery itself would simply manifest itself in different ways. This is how the world works, okay? Do those people need to be gotten rid of? I mean, yeah, all logic dictates it. All morality dictates it, that if you've got murderers and liars and thieves and psychopathic criminals, okay, running everything, killing everybody, left, right, and center, and damaging the rest with trauma and poisons and things of that nature, any logical, rational person just looking at it would think, okay, that's death sentence worthy. People have been executed for far less than the majority of what elites are doing just on a daily basis to satisfy their own sexual appetites, let alone any other appetite.
Ugh.
Okay. Voice, what was it? The Sound of Freedom coming out and stuff like that, and these media coming out and saying, "Oh, these people are fetishizing," or this kind of stuff. No, they're hunting and jailing pedophiles and releasing the children that they were going to rape. And you're going to stand against that message? Okay, you're on the list now, guy.
Right, Disney bought the production company that made that movie. That movie was complete and ready to go to theaters back in 2018. And Disney stopped its release for 5 years. What
was happening about 5 years ago? Was that where the Hunter Biden freaking laptop or something like that came out, or was that more recently? But
I would say, I think that, I mean, there's so much going on 5 years ago, my dude. Like,
anyway, back to my original point.
Right.
You got to hunt and get rid of these bad people first of all. That solves part of the problem. The other part of the problem is everybody who they left behind, who's basically a child in their head and in their heart. Okay. And so children need to be indoctrinated, okay, in a very clinical manner to understand right from wrong, okay? This is Joey. Joey raped Sally. Is that the right thing to do? No. Good boy, Johnny. You picked the right answer. That was wrong. This is Daryl. Daryl stole something from Tracy. Is Daryl doing the right thing? No, that's right. Good boy. You see, all these very basic principles that we don't get taught anymore. Can you rape somebody? No, you can't. Can you assault somebody? No, you can't. Can you lie to somebody maliciously? No, you can't. Okay. Can you trespass on somebody's property? Can you steal their stuff? Can you murder them? Okay. No, you can't. Because the one basic principle of the universe, you can't take that which does not belong to you. All right? Children being forcibly indoctrinated with these very simple principles would be very, very smart idea, I think. And on top of that indoctrination, they need to be now indoctrinated with, oh, my baby's crying a little bit. I may have to go and help in just a second. I mean, considering the topic matter, that's apropos, isn't it? So, and the next thing you need to forcibly indoctrinate all the remaining children of the world is the trivium. Okay? All right, kid, you got to go out there. What am I going to do? Well, you're going to start asking questions. Oh, what kind of questions? Well, you're going to ask who, you're going to ask what, when, where, and how. Okay?
And don't forget why.
That's right, because it's the most important question. But it's the question you ask last. Why do you ask the question why last? Well, first of all, that's a bad question because you're supposed to ask that last. All right. But the main principle is that if you ask why, this is what children do. Why? Why? Because they find that why is all that gives them the most interesting answers. Okay. But it doesn't give you any real understanding if somebody explains you why. Okay. Why did Israel have a hand in the 9/11 attacks? Well, that's not the first question you ask. The question was, who was involved in the 9/11 attacks? What did they actually do? When exactly did this happen? So on and so forth, before you start asking why. It's called grammar before logic. Get your facts straight in a row before you start wondering about what all these things mean. Because if you're wondering what things mean, when you don't even have the slightest clue what they are yet, you are a child. And you are running round in circles with no knowledge in your head, only your thoughts and opinions, which everybody's got. Okay? Very few people have the facts. Very few people have the principles. So once you know what is right and wrong and how to determine whether or not something is actually real, the facts behind it, then, little Johnny, your job in life is to learn those things so well. What is it you wanted to do? You wanted to be an astronaut, did you? You wanted to be president of the United States? Well, if I came up to you and you were an astronaut or a president of the United States, and I start asking you questions about your gig, I start asking those questions. Who, what, when, where, how, and why. And you can start rattling off answers to me. Just like that. You're done with phase 2 of the trivium, and now you're on to phase 3, which is to teach what you know to others. Find out what's right from wrong. Find out how to tell fact from fiction. Learn enough about something that you love so that you can teach it to others. Okay? If those basic principles were indoctrinated into every child living on planet today, within 2 to 3 generations, we would have a radical shift in where humanity's currently heading. It's currently heading right down to hell. And we might be able to ascend somewhat. We'll never achieve heaven, but we'll be getting closer to it every day because we had the presence of mind to realize that there was a threat, not only to our entire human race and our children, stuff like that, but also the planet. And this threat was not some alien invader. This threat was our own lack of morality and our own willingness to tolerate evil. We need to eliminate that threat, which is eliminating our own selfish needs and wanton desires. And then we need to figure out what is real, what means something to us. And once we've figured that out, to pass on that knowledge so that it doesn't evaporate and leave the next generation stranded without the knowledge of how they got there. That was my solution, but it's only the basic bricks work, and it's going to take generations to do, and goodness knows how you would accomplish it in the first place. But I guarantee you, I'm not the only person who's had this idea. All right. I remember the story of who invented the telescope. It was invented by 9 guys who never met, didn't speak the same language, and lived on opposite sides of the world. One night, each of them sat bolt upright in their bed and made a telescope prototype. Interesting. Same night. And I believe this is what David Icke told me about the hair, the fractal antenna. So it's coiled around your DNA, and your hair is just an extension of that. And there's signals in the morphic field, ideas, thoughts, inventions, arts, sounds, and things of that nature. They're not here. You can't hear them. But if you're in the receiving position, at that right time, at that right place, or in that right state of mind, you can download those signals, and other people will download them as well. But it's just a question who gets off their ass and does something about it. Because as a fifth dimensional consciousness being, that's your job, more or less, to manifest that which doesn't exist, that you can see and hear and smell and taste and touch in your mind, and spend your fourth dimensional time willing it into 3-dimensional reality, where other people who are living in this 5 sense world with us can see, smell, and taste and touch your work and trigger their own ideas that exist outside of space and time and pass that stuff down as well. So it's a big responsibility. And I think for a large part, the most important thing that anybody's ever done and may ever do in their entire life is, we're going out tonight. What are we going to do? Okay? Partying. All the time, isn't it? It's the only thing people are really excited about, because they've just had to work really hard on something they don't like, that doesn't inspire them creatively whatsoever for a significant period of time. And now the only thing that they can think of to do with their time is something completely irresponsible to make up with the good person that they've been, so that they can go back and keep doing it and keep being miserable. And
they're not a good person, because they're cheating themselves out of a fulfilled life.
Yeah. I mean, how do you define a good person these days?
The same way you define a good person any day, a person that doesn't willingly initiate harm against another sentient being.
I mean, is that a good person, though? Because what if somebody sits around and allows somebody else to be harmed in front of them? Is that a good person, too, because they didn't initiate the harm?
That's a very good point. Yeah.
You see?
So, yeah, I guess you would have to include something like that in the equation as well.
How about this? Somebody who doesn't hurt others or damage their property, whom, if they saw it happening to somebody else, they would risk their body and their property to stop it from happening to somebody else.
One who
I would define that as a good person through and through.
One who doesn't initiate harm, and when they see harm being initiated, they speak up and do what they can to put a stop to it.
And are willing to risk harm themselves in order to ensure that justice is done. Yeah. I mean, this seems very clear, right?
Right.
And that's a lot more obligation than simply not hurting anybody or damaging anybody's stuff, isn't it? That's real easy to do. But to risk what you've got for, in some cases, maybe a total stranger, there's something very different about that. And we call those people heroes, right? Generally speaking. And we get it all mixed up, because a lot of times, Hollywood and the military advertisements and things like that, they make order followers the hero. Right, this guy right here, he got 4 silver stars, only killed 18 Vietnamese children. That was a record in our company. He was a hero, man. He saved me from being, it's just, come on, man.
And then there's all the superhero movies that are coming out, and every last one of those superheroes in every single one of those movies, bar one, are working for the government, or with, in whatever capacity government, can be represented by the military, the police, the whatever. It's still all the same entity. It's government. So the hero, then what the one exception would be a Captain America movie where he goes rogue due to these papers that they want these heroes to sign, and he says, what if they tell us to be someplace that we know we shouldn't be? Or worse, what if there's someplace that we know we need to go, where we need to be, and they tell us we're not allowed to go there? What about that? He starts asking questions, and he refuses to sign the papers, and he goes rogue. So, I mean, I just figured I would throw that in the mix too, because like hero movies, maybe in like when we were kids, looked at things like, Rambo and stuff like that. Like these movies, these are the heroes, these are the badasses, these, you know what I mean? Like, and but nowadays it's a little different. These kids have complete, just mind melting information put in front of them, and what makes a hero is somebody who always works with the law enforcement. They always work with the government. They never go against the grain. Look what happens when you do. So
It's creepy how they did that. I think I'm looking at a t-shirt on my wall. It says, when the people fear their government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty. Thomas Jefferson. And this reminds me of the point of fact that why I started doing what I was doing is because I had panic attacks about being employed or having to deal with the government. All right. Both of those things. Try making a living where you cannot work in the private sector or the government sector. That's a brain teaser. I mean, now you know why I haven't quit. It's because there's literally no other job for me to do that I can do. I can't work for people. I can't follow orders. I can't. I have to do what I know to be right. Otherwise, my body goes into shock and it tells me, no, get out of here. I'm going to kill you if you stay here. Like, that's the thing. My body tells me that I'm going to die if I'm about to be employed. It tells me that I am dying if I'm in police custody. It's terrible being me. It really sucks, because the only thing you can do and feel okay about is risking everything you've got against people who don't give the least care about you, that you have almost no chance of beating. I'm in a desperate situation at all times. And that's the reason why humor is so absolutely freaking important for it. Because otherwise, if you didn't laugh, you'd cry.
Yeah. It was interesting what you were talking about earlier, because it with the children, it's very important, because I think you're absolutely spot on with that. You would see a dramatic change within 2 or 3 generations down the road, and you wouldn't even need everyone. You just need a small amount at first, and that momentum, it builds, and hopefully, that's something that we can look forward to. I know that you and I will be making our whatever sort of impact we can. We have children to raise, not just to watch them grow up, but to actually raise these kids, bring their consciousness up, teach them the difference between right and wrong, and how it applies. That difference applies equally to everybody, or else this whole thing, nothing works. This is how we get to the chaos that we're experiencing today, is when we forget about that principle of, this golden rule, and all of these great things that we can teach our children, about the difference, about morality, really. It's so important, because Yeah, we're doing the content creation and everything like that, hoping to wake people up, right? But we gotta understand something too, that there's people out there that never have to be asleep in the first place. And we can try to do our what we can and focus on that as well and try to help children, you know,
Just one thought I was having on this. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I'm
go
going to
for
do
it.
it before it gets out of my head. You know how traumatic it was waking up? Like you lived your
Oh,
entire life a freaking lie, and then you realize that you basically wasted your entire time. Now the question is, if you raise a child from day dot, and as soon as he's able to understand it, hey Billy, 9/11's an inside job, boy. "Oh, okay, what's an inside job? Well, that's what false flag terrorism. When you're like, you remember how your sister tricked you and stole something off your plate and then blamed your brother or something like that, or got your brother to do it and then he blamed her. Yeah, well, that's a false flag, basically. And just explaining that to a child, like a 7-year-old or whatever, is knowing that before you know anything else, before you've bought into the lie, before you think that government is your savior, before you think that politicians can be trusted, before you think, after what you're told to believe, if somebody de-indoctrinated you before you even got indoctrinated, would you be more traumatized or less traumatized knowing that everything's a shit show from the get-go?
huh. That's a pretty good question. I mean, I think I think he'd be more ready to deal with the sleeping masses to know, like, I would err on the side of truth is the best remedy, right?
Ooh, 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 ooh. If you've ever betrayed someone before or lied to somebody before, and I have, and if you're a person with a conscience like me, lying to somebody and betraying them hurts
Oh,
you
yeah.
a hell of a lot. Okay, it really does. And the people you betray, they don't realize that, or at least they're so hurt by what you've done that they can never really open up and think to themselves that you felt bad about what you did, right?
I would think that they're right to feel that way.
Yeah,
But
sure.
yeah,
And
okay.
and this is just down to the brass tacks of understanding, no emotion in it. Here are the facts of the matter and the betrayal and so on and so forth. That's a traumatizing instance because it means that everything that you've learned up from that point is just all shifting frickin' sand, right? Like you don't know who this person is. You don't know how to talk to them or anything. You hate them. That's betrayal, right? Now, the entirety of society is currently in a relationship like that with the government, okay? With somebody who is actively cheating on them and lying to them every single day about it. And not just for 6 months or a year or whatever, for your entire life. Since you were a child, the people that had been telling you all this stuff, had been betraying you the whole time. Maybe that's where the trauma comes in. Because if you were told the truth from the get go, you would have learned to deal with it from the get go. You wouldn't have trusted people and then had that subsequent betrayal feeling, which is impossible to shake. Because once you've been betrayed, you can't forget it. Okay. Just like when I got betrayed by Barack Obama, never trusted an American presidential candidate since. All right. Because betrayal affects you. And it doesn't just affect your relationship with the one you're with, it affects every relationship you're ever going to have in future. Maybe that's why, or at least part of the reason why, us so called conspiracy theorists get so badly ostracized. Because all the people who don't have any idea what the hell is going on and don't really know who you are or what's been going on in your head with all the research that you've been doing feel like they've been betrayed by you. Oh man, all I want to do was have a beer with you and stuff like that. Why are you talking about all this crap? I feel like I don't even know you anymore. All right. So it's either you feel betrayed by the system and you get traumatized because of that. And then everybody you've ever known, more or less, most of the time, I've talked to a lot of people who've become conspiracy theorists and have lost their friends or family or both. Most of the time, that's what happens. So you get a double betrayal. Number one, the government and every entity and things like that has betrayed me. So that's a huge difficulty for me to trust any entity now.
Yeah.
And then immediately after having that realization, you realize that all the people that you loved and trusted, more bar a few of them, maybe if you're lucky, were in on the scam as well.
Yeah.
And now don't like you because you've betrayed the betrayers.
It's like, you're
Right?
like, hey, these guys are, it's like, these guys are a big group of deceivers over here. Look at all the liars over there. And then you turn around and you're trying to tell your family, your friends about this stuff. And you're like, look at all this. And they're just like, shut up, dude. And then you go, oh, you're complicit in this. Oh my God. You're a part of this. And it's just another layer just peeled right away, just peeled off.
Have we ever come back from that? Like, are we ever friendly with people the way we used to be? Are we now suspicious? Do we now have our guards up? Is there certain things that people say and do that immediately say to us, I don't want to talk to this person anymore? Are we much more defensive now? Right?
I've been, I mean, to bring it kind of personal for me, it's been kind of a struggle lately where my patience and tolerance for people that are so heavily into this religion of statism, it's my patience for these people is so thin. After everything that's just been thrown in our faces, and there's just a short amount of time in the last few years, the one thing I can understand is how overwhelming it can all be. But don't let that be the excuse for you not to adhere to the truth that's being revealed in front of you. And that's a poor loser excuse to be like, well, what can I do? No, you can get angry, you can stop going along with the plan, but yet you statists out there, you keep going along with it. You keep feeding the machine. It's like you disagree with government no matter what it looks like, but you still go to the ballot box every couple of years to cast your vote in hopes that this thing's going to change. When are you going to wake up and realize that it's operating exactly the way that it's intended to operate? You're not supposed to be happy. You're not supposed to be pleased with these people. You're supposed to be under their control, and that's wrong. So get up, wake up, grow up. And these people just don't want to do it. What do they're not going to understand until the barrel of a gun is pointing in their face, and they're going to go, I wish I'd listen, and bang, they're going to be dead. That's what's going to happen to these people. And guys like me, guys like you, among many, 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 many others, are standing here today going, this is a possibility. This is something that in history can teach us, that has happened countless times throughout history. Governments have turned against their own people. Even in the last 100 years, in the last decade, in the last 5 years, governments have turned against their own people. When are you people going to wake up and stop going along with it? There are more of us than there are of them. Bottom line. And
at least for the time being.
At least for the time being. But we still have that now. So that's the here and now. There's more of us than there are of them, and they can't arrest or kill all of us because and they wouldn't, because there'd be no one left for them to rule, and they'd have to fight their wars between themselves. It would be Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin in a boxing ring fighting in front of nobody, because there'd be no armies left for them to just throw at each other and dispose of these people, these poor saps that sign up for this fake altruistic bullshit that they think that they're going and doing some noble thing, and it's not. And they just don't, and they don't understand it. My patience for these people is so thin at this point, I'm going to fucking snap. I don't want to be around them. They're complicit in all of this. They're the reason why all of this shit was even able to happen.
I was talking with a friend of mine, and just had a quadruple bypass. First heart problem he's ever had, and he has to have a quadruple bypass. That's when they replace all 4 of the arteries that go into your heart. Like, they were all screwed. 4 o'clock in the morning kind of thing, go off in an ambulance. Took him 2 years to recover from it. And again, the conversation, this is a good friend of mine who I've known since before I became a truther. It's kind of somebody who helped mentor me into this side of things. And I realized that we actually have the same lifestyle, right?
Mm.
We're at home most of the time, working on the stuff that we've got here. And is that because we can't afford an office, or because we don't want to work with other people? Largely, you know, because you can't trust people to be there and do everything for no money. All right, that's the basic rule of fighting any fight, is that you need mercenaries or you need heroes. Okay, and the vast majority of people in this society are mercenary. So if you're a hero, the chances are you're the only one in your family. The chances are very good that you're the only one in your family. The chances are very good that you might be the only one you know personally. And that means that you're going to go through the hero's journey. And the hero denies the call to action. They all do. They say, no, no, I can't do that. That's too risky. That's too stupid, so on and so forth. But then something happens to the hero that forces their hand, that makes them say, all right, my not doing anything didn't work. Now I have to do something. And before you get to the end of the hero's journey, where you get the golden apple, or you get the golden fleece, or you get the whatever it is MacGuffin that you set off on your quest to get, to bring back the knowledge, bring back the item, bring back the something to make your society better, you still have to go through this whole cycle, and every hero does. So what do you do in this society when you're a lone hero? Generally speaking, you'll be at home doing your work, and you'll go out occasionally to find other people who are good people, because nobody else is worth your fucking time. And you will essentially just survive, just subsist and survive, and everything you need will just miraculously turn up, because you're just doing the right thing on a daily basis, and the universe will reward you for doing the right thing, and it'll punish you when you stop doing it. And so you're on this hamster wheel. You're very lonely most of the time. Sometimes you get to speak with other people that are like yourself, heroes, regardless of what kind of label that really has on it. If anybody looks up to other people who are making content like this, and they're not taking no for an answer from their government or their military or so on and so forth, that's kind of the definition. This is what people do. Insurmountable odds by ordinary individuals being faced. Okay? Just because it's the right thing to do, and sacrificing everything you got to do it. So if we've all got the same kind of lifestyle, the question is it worth it? Is it effective, or whatever? And John told me this. He said that there'll be one person that listened to your show or read your magazine article or something of that nature, for which it really hit home, that episode. And this person had been struggling with something very, very hard in their own life. And it was only upon hearing from you or seeing that work that you did that they were able to suddenly have cognition for all the things that they are and do. And suddenly, through that alignment of their thoughts with the reality, they're able to change their trajectory from being a government loving, order following slave piece of crap to being more heroic and more dutiful in their daily life. One person, right? That is the point of the entire gig. That's why these lights are here. That's why that green screen's behind me. That's why these computers are here. That's why the modem is down there. That's why I've got a jacket on. That's why I've got shoes on. Well, it doesn't matter what you've got, because if you keep doing what you're supposed to do, you will have what you need to continue doing what you've got. And that is the art of persistence.
Bravo. Wow. Well, that almost seems like a perfect place for us to call it a night. What do you say?
Yeah, right. Good night, everybody. I'm out.
Yeah, that's what he says. Okay, bye, Vinny.
Yeah.
But
I remember one time it was really hot during summer, and it was the end of the show, and it's like, ladies and gentlemen, there are some things you don't want to know the answer to. For example, was Vinny wearing pants this episode? Good night, everybody.
yeah, there's some questions that don't need answers. For sure.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, Vinny, what do you hope for the future with this appeals process? What do you think the likelihood is that it's going to work out in your favor?
Well, I'm cynical, so 90% of the time I'm correct, and 10% of the time I'm pleasantly surprised. And unfortunately, I think I'm going to be correct. This one, that New Zealand is a completely tyrannical government, and they're going to throw the book at me and punish me brutally, and they're simply going to expose themselves for the tyrannical frickin' scum that they are, and a whole bunch of people are going to be shocked who could do something about it, but they won't. And I'll suffer, and my family will suffer, and a whole bunch of other people who perhaps I don't even know will suffer and possibly die because I'm not here doing my job, which is trying to bring light to the darkness. All right. It's the reason why they call it making light of a situation, because you can make darkness all you want, and anybody can do that. But to make light, to really make it takes a very special kind of person, and that kind of wit and humor and fun that can be brought to these dark times, I believe, is more important now than it ever has been, despite the fact that there's maybe a dozen people who watch my show nowadays. Okay? Again, there might be one person who changes something good about their life, and that's why you do it. So in the meantime, I'm going to appeal on the 31st of July, and I hope, for the sake of my family, maybe not for necessarily my sake, because I got to tell you, I must be a bit masochistic. I think I do. I did want to get arrested, didn't I? I did want to suffer, didn't I? I did want to go through deprivation, didn't I? I did want all of these bad, terrible things that have happened to me, that have been the worst time in my entire life. I did want them. All right? The question is, what was I thinking? And I think the answer was that I wanted to go through a dark night of the soul. I wanted to change like a butterfly, get into my cocoon and then come out the other side changed. Now, by the look of it, the butterfly that I will become will look pretty fucked up indeed. Like, I'm not sure if it's going to fly or, I don't know, or it'll come out like one of those Cronenberg creatures off of
Rick and Morty.
Rick and Morty. Kill me.
Oh my god, Cronenberg.
I probably will end up like that. The acid attack in prison. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, mate. 3 square meals a day, fold in the washing. I don't know. Hey, actually, tell me, like, because you went for 90 days, and that's about what I'm facing here, and the day-to-day rigmarole. It's just basically doing sweet bugger all by yourself and dying of boredom and frustration that people who are dumber than you are now in charge of your life, and you can't wait to get out of here. I mean, is that a fair summary?
Well,
Or am I oversimplifying it? I think I am.
I think you are, and it is actually pretty complicated because you're in New Zealand. I don't know what goes on down there. It might be similar to the American jailing system or prison system, but
Both your jails and ours are run by Serco, the international conglomerate. So yeah, they'll be pretty freaking similar.
all right. Well, if it's a jail and not a prison, then you're in pretty good shape. Because those are two very different things. Excuse me. But I would say that your best bet is just to stay relaxed. Don't talk to anybody. You just mind your own business. Maybe there is somebody who recognizes you or whatever. They're not your friends, no matter how much they try to make you feel comfortable. They're probably not your friends, and it's best to just keep to yourself as much as you possibly can. Maybe barter with other people that are depending on your housing or your living quarters when you're in there. Maybe the guy in the next room over. Maybe you're in a room with like multiple people. There's all sorts of different styles. The first time I went to jail, I was in, first of all, this big gymnasium that was just filled with bunk beds, and then
oh my god,
yeah, yep. And then after it was disgusting. You couldn't get sleep. People were loud, but you get transferred out of there, and you go to a quieter place in the jail, and so that was called the first room I described, the gymnasium. That's called the Voke, and in there's like 80 people in one room, and they're all so.
And you can hear everything.
Yeah, yeah, and for the most part, like you get like 74 people in that room are respectful, and lights out. Everyone tries to be quiet. Then there's always a few rabble rousers, whatever. But I got moved to a different area in the jail at one point where it was called 80 bed, where there were 8 rooms with there were 10 rooms with 8 people in them, 8 people each in these 10 rooms, and it was basically like a where you go if you like are locked up for being a drunk driver or drug possession, these types of non-violent things, but it's still against the law even though you didn't hurt anybody, whatever. But that's where you end up in those situations. And then when I went back for the second time to do the 90-day sentence was when they actually like took. So I basically just like I sentenced out. I was on a probationary period I got a 2-year probation, and then I did a year of the probation. I started failing drug tests, and this whole mess of a situation went down, and I just basically stood in front of the judge. I said, I'm sick and tired of being here. I'm sure you guys are sick and tired of seeing me. What do I got to do to make sure that, because I know I'm leaving I'm going to the county jail. I know that you guys have made that clear. I'm not leaving the courthouse today. So what do I got to do, to make sure like I'm not coming back to the courthouse is what I basically was trying to ask the guy. then he was like, no, you're good. You did half your probation. We'll give you half your sentence. I was originally going to have a 6-month, 180-day sentence, but I did half my probation. I was 18 at the time. This was quite a long time. This was like 16, 17 years ago. So, but I was 18, and I guess the judge saw this as a brave thing for me to stand there and just be like, hey, what do I have to do to not have to ever come back here? You guys are tired of seeing me. I'm tired of seeing you. I want to break up. It's not you, it's me type of thing. And it's like, well, and so I don't know. I'm not thankful for it, but they did something very, I think, reasonable. I did half my probation. They gave me half my sentence. All right. 90 days later, I was out, and I was otherwise a free man, I guess. I wasn't in jail anymore. But while I was in jail, I went back to the same facilities that I previously described in my first bid, which was this gymnasium filled with 80 people, and I was there for about a week. And then I got transferred into the lowest security jailing facility in Massachusetts, as far as I know. It's a place called the Farm in Lawrence, where you go and you're just able to roam around. You have your chores and things like that. I was just a drug kid. I got pinned for failing drug tests. I was never a violent offender. I never did any violence toward anybody ever. No assault and batteries, nothing. Not a scratch on me or anyone else due to me. So that's what got me into a facility like that. But while I was there, you would think, oh, minimum security, things are going to be fine and everything's going to be great. But the doors are all open at all times of the day. You get on the nerves of the wrong person, and next thing you know, they're in your room later on that day, and they want to have words with you, and you're in a room with like 10 other people in a facility like this, and you don't really have a lot of alone time. And so that's a plus and a minus at the same time, because everyone sees everything you're doing. So if you don't come correct, if you don't act right, everyone's going to know it. And there's certain things that you do and you don't do. And that's why my advice would be to just try to keep to yourself as much as possible. If anyone asks you why you're there, it's none of their fucking business. If anyone wants to get it, they can get it. If your judicial system's anything like ours, that's already public information. They don't have to come and ask you for it. If they're curious and they know your name, they can go and get that information all on their own. But they're trying to get something from you. That's why they're approaching you. That's been my experience. Maybe it's somebody that actually recognizes you and sympathizes with you, but that's up to you at the end of the day. I would say, visit if there's a library on the premise, go to the library, get books, read books. That's what I did. I was reading Dostoevsky. I was reading all sorts of things when I was in jail at the tender young age of 18. I turned my 19th birthday. I was in a jail cell.
And again, jail has radicalized you. Okay.
Maybe.
If you send intelligent kids to jail and they got nothing but a library full of anti-authoritarian works to read through because it's the only thing they're thinking about right now, you have created yourself another problem child system, okay? How many times do I have to say it? Rehabilitation just doesn't work. I mean, I'm going to come out so much more radicalized. Like, honestly, maybe that will be the part of my growth or what have you. I mean, I thought it was actually quite funny the other time I was getting Agi Nost on the show, and it comes off and we're off air, and he says, Vinny, I think jail might actually be good for you. In some ways, there's things you can give up and things you can start. And I go, it's you might actually have a point there, because with the shadow banning and everything like that, I might actually have a bigger audience inside. Like I could be broadcasting to just the 8 people in my room, and that'll be more viewers that I've got on the live stream now.
You know, something else that you could do is you could turn this into a very constructive thing for yourself. If you have, if you have stationary equipment that you're allowed to have in jail, write a book. 3 months is plenty of time if you have nothing but time. If they haven't given you anything else to do other than, make sure that you're in your cell when they tell you to be. And when it's time to eat, you go to eat. When it's time to take a shower, you go and take a shower. These are the types of things you could expect. And whenever you have all the free time that you have, I mean, lights out is lights out. They're going to shut the lights off. You won't be, unless things have changed. You're not going to really, have much lighting. I didn't, And by the way, I got put into solitary confinement for a couple of days at the end of my sentence there, and that was interesting. But it was I had a loud mouth, and I didn't appreciate the person that was there was the deputy sheriff, or was it the deputy sheriff? Yeah, the sheriff is the guy. But anyways, when I was screaming at him, and they had me put into solitary because of that, and whatever. But it was like the last 3 days of my sentence too, and I needed to call my mother, and I ran out of minutes on the phone or whatever, and I just asked them, can I use the phone here in your office, because this is like a low level security place. Like, you're allowed to just roam around. You have a guidance counselor that you go and see. It's like you're in a boarding school, it's like something out of Harry Potter almost. You're roaming around this. You there's a barrier around the property that you could just walk through, but if they catch you, you get 6 more months automatically. So you could walk away at any time you want. I knew guys that were running through the woods to a convenience store to get cigarettes, and then they would run back in an hour. And this convenience store was I think 7 miles away. They would run there all the way there, whoof, like lightning, buy a carton of smokes, and whoof, like lightning, come back, because every hour on the hour you had to line up, and they did a attendance. They wanted to know who was there, if everyone was there still. And if you missed one of those, you'd be in trouble. You miss a few of them, and you're no longer allowed to stay in the low-level security. You're going back to the actual county jail. So they dangle these carrots in front of you or whatever. But I would be more worried about people trying to fight because of some stupid thing. I got into a few fights just because I was standing in a place. I had no idea. And there's this little 19-year-old version of me. And I don't know what the fuck I'm doing here. I didn't, and just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then the next thing you know, you're in a chokehold on the floor. Some huge guy that you've never met before in your entire life. And you don't have a clue of what you did wrong. Or you're getting dragged out of your one thing that happened, and I don't mean to scare you, but one thing that happened to me, and I got dragged out of my bed in the middle of the night, and they hogtied me in the middle of the floor and just left me there for the guards to find me. But luckily, one of my buddies who I knew from the outside was in the same room at the same time, and he untied me, and I got back to my bed, and the guards never knew what happened. I never ratted on anybody for it or anything like that, but that was a very real situation. In the middle of the night, out of a cold sleep, just all of a sudden 4 people are just dragging me out of my bed, and I'm like, what is going on right now? And what had happened is earlier that day, these 4 guys who were, older, and they put young guys like me in there with older guys too. So it's there's no segregation of age, which is whatever, but they were picking on this other young kid who was even younger than me at the time. I had met the kid the day before, and I'm like, hey, we're both kind of young guys. Why don't we hang out? thinking this is going to be like, high school or something like that. Like, oh, it'll be a breeze. And we're like hanging out and we're swapping stories. And I find out he's like a year younger than me. And we're just hanging out and whatever. And then the next day, these four guys look like they're picking on him. And I walked over and I said, why don't you just leave him alone? He's just a kid. And these guys are like older gang members. I had no idea. And they decided to, rip me out of my bed later that night because I mouthed off to them.
Hence the whole stick to your own, don't mind your own business.
If I had known that, yeah. But luckily, the person who untied me that evening, he was he was also a gang member, and he was in the same gang, and he like told them like don't mess with James, like he's just a kid from this town, a few towns over from the same, like, so his name was Domingo, and Domingo is the one who untied me, and he was from a city close to the town I grew up in, and he used to give me some cannabis every now and again when he'd swing through my hometown on a hot summer day. If I couldn't get something from my regular guy, then he would be there, and I'd be like, hey, Domingo, what's up? And I grew up with his brother-in-law. He married this girl that lived in the same town as me, and her little brother, so it's his brother-in-law, and I grew up with that kid. But anyways, that's how I knew him.
All the people you knew before jail, if they're in there, while you're in there, you might have a relationship with somebody. But
yeah,
if you don't know them and you're in jail and you're both in jail for the first time, you potentially ain't never gonna know them. All right,
you'll never know them. Yeah, you'll know the jail version of them, which is like complete shutdown consciousness and making sure that they just survive, absolute survival mode for a lot of people that go into those situations who are unfamiliar with those situations.
That's what I'm in. That's what I'm in right now, preparing for jail. I feel like I'm in freaking survival mode, bro.
Yeah, it's a natural reaction, and you're doing just fine. It's going to be fine. It's just a matter of, if that happens, what do you do when you find yourself in that facility? I suggest just read books. Try to stay out of people's way. Unfortunately, there's going to be guards telling you what to do. Don't get on their bad side, because they can make your life a living hell.
Yeah. Yes, master. Oh, please, how may I serve you? Oh, I am a worm.
I know it's hilarious, and it sounds a little bit like that, but it's not. It's more just like, just be the guy that when it's like, oh, it's, hey, everyone, if you're in this facility that they're like, hey, everyone line up, you're going to the mess hall now. Don't be the guy that's like being like, fuck you to them. Like, just, what I mean? Like, you might see a guy that just out of nowhere just starts screaming at a guard. Something's going on with that guy. There's like, as long as that guy's not you, you'll be fine. It's only 90 days. I know it's only 90 days. It's like, no, that's really unfair for me to have said just now. But
it's not 14 years, which is what other people in the truth movement in New Zealand are up for at the moment, and 28 years as well. Hannah and Calvin. At least I didn't have blood forcibly taken like Hannah Spera did, all of those kind of things. The problem is that the cursing of others is always interpreted as a blessing by those who've been cursed slightly less.
Good night, folks. Yeah, man. It's a really terrible thing. I hope that they at least like cut you some slack. If it happens, I hope that they at least cut you some slack and realize that man, I don't know. It's putting too much faith in those fucking swine. But you would just hope that they would be like, oh, you really didn't do anything truly violent, so why don't we put you in a facility that's like that low level security facility I described to you that I went to, like, it's like to I don't know. As much as I fucking hate the bastards, there are standards that they do follow from time to time around where I grew up. you know, and it's like, okay, I can talk about that little microcosm until I'm blue in the face. I have no idea what it's like everywhere else. I have no fucking clue.
What I was thinking is long term, like, you know, when you're in a survival situation, it takes a certain amount of time for your adrenaline to come by, and then your body tells you you're not in that survival situation anymore. When you're in a long-term survival situation like that, it's a little bit different because the wiring in your brain freaking reprograms itself between 1 and 6 months of not being in control of your life. That's what we commonly know as complex post-traumatic stress, which I already have
Yeah.
from previous court and police appearances and things like that when I was about, I don't know, about 17 years ago. Exactly. I think maybe you and me were uh, in the hands of the police around about the same time, actually. And that affects you in an ongoing fashion. And I'm just wondering, like, that was just me doing a day in jail and then having to deal with court and stuff like that for like a month or whatever before I pled guilty. That was what affected me and is still affecting me today. And I know that I'm a different person today because of that trauma that I suffered. And it doesn't go away, not entirely, but it took a while for it to calm down just a little bit so that I could start trying to live a normal life again. I was just wondering about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's different for everybody. Of course, that's like a real easy way for me to just cop out of giving you an actual answer to that. But I would say that given your current exposure to the police and having that like that stress and everything like that, I mean, I would just say your best bet is probably to just meditate a lot, try to focus on the goal, the focus on the finish line, right? Because they've got no reason to keep you there forever. That's not the promise they made you. I know it's a weird way to put it. That's a weird phrase, you know, but it's a promise. They make a promise like that and they fucking keep it. You bet your boots. If you're, you know, they want to put you away for life, that's a promise and they're doing it. They say, oh, we promise we'll put you in for 3 months. That's a promise. They're going to do it, you know? And so it's a weird play on words, but I don't know. I like the outcome of it. You know?
Recently, I watched the movie Tango and Cash, and
Those are the worst.
it's like one of the worst movies, right? And I thought there was just one line out of the entire movie. There's one line that I actually really remember and won't forget. It's Jack Palance, all in black, and he's gotten these cops sent to a prison instead of a minimum security facility, right? And he's got all these people surrounding them, and they're about to freaking kill them. And they want to know who he is. And he goes, just think of me as someone who doesn't like you very much. It's just classic. Somebody who doesn't like you very much. Just as simple as it is, and just as corny as it is, but just delivered in the right way. It's just absolutely brilliant. And I think that's a kind of a good summation for what the Vinny Eastwood show is all about.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Hey, man, we started off real depressed, but it got even more depressing. Thank you, James.
Well, I wouldn't want to let anyone down.
You perish the thought.
Oh man. Yeah, I think that you'll be I want you to be okay. I think that you will be. I think that this could actually be a very transformative time in your life where, you know, I mean, of course it's going to be regardless of how you seize the if you even want to bear to call it an opportunity, right? But it's all about the way you seize it. You could be down in the dumps about it. You could be all cynical about it and wallow in the muck, or you could take it as a way to let the phoenix rise from the ashes and turn it into something, you know?
Like Malcolm X went to jail, then he came out and he became Malcolm X, right? And Johnny Cash, you know, that kind of thing, went to jail. And so I think that there's no terrible barrier to success after you've gone to prison. I think that's what a lot of people think, that their life will forever be destroyed the second they wind up in prison. And it's just not the case. It's just your life will be a little bit fucked up is all, It's just because I think it's like when you see the real face of systemic control, it starts to make you believe that you can have that kind of control over yourself. And that if you don't want to end up in somebody else's system of control, that's what you best do. Isn't it?
Yeah. You got to have, yeah, right. Self-control is what you're getting at. And that's absolutely 100% true. I just hope that you just find a way to have the peace of mind that's necessary to just get you through it, because we've talked before and I'm aware of your, I'm aware of the stress, and everything that you go through, and it's a terrible fucking thing. And that's really, that's not a good feeling, but if you just focus on the finish line, it's 90 days, one day at a time, keep a journal, whatever. That's what I did for like the first month that I was in. I kept a journal. I just wrote my thoughts to myself because I didn't want to talk to anybody. So I got them out and I had the journal. I forget where it is. It still exists. It's somewhere, the journal. Unless the ex burnt it. Probably she burnt it. But anyways, I had it for a while. But like, yeah, it's like these are things you can do. Read plenty of books, write a book if you want, that'd be something pretty neat.
Well, I am writing a book at the moment, but of course it's all digital. It's on the computer, and I can't take this computer with me if I go. So if I do get in there, I'll have to start a new book from scratch, or just try and piece together the old one. You just
can't let them find it on you, the computer. That's a terrible joke. Anyways.
Yeah. How did you get that up there, son?
Right.
Well, I'm actually, I was a part-time executive for KY for some time, and you try and try again. Can he fit it? Yes, it can.
On this episode of Can He Fit It?
I mean, I guarantee you there's going to be a show like that in the near future, with morality sliding so far down. There's going to be a show like Fear Factor, but it'll be like Ass Factor.
It'll be like an Idiocracy. Ow, my balls.
Yeah. Like what can you fit up there?
Right.
Here is a half-gallon Coke bottle.
And it's glass. Oh boy.
Just watch you don't clench too hard, otherwise it's gonna it's just sort of like pinch the sides, won't be able to get it out. I'm not talking from experience, of course. But we're okay. This took a remarkable turn for the worst. Sorry, it's my bad, everybody. Like if you're ever in times of doubt, remember this one very important truth that you can rely upon year after year, day after day. It was Vinny's fault.
All Vinny's fault.
Blame Vinny. All right. Sometimes you don't have a choice, because I'm absolutely to blame. I mean, I was to blame for getting Billy arrested at that protest. I could have told him, no, Billy, let's not hold this protest. That's really a bad idea. We're going to get arrested. We're going to get bankrupted. It's going to destroy our families and stuff like that. But I didn't. I was like, yeah, let's get arrested. Didn't think that one through, did you, boy? And because of my foolish mistake, I now have to go around and ask pretty much anyone I can for help, And maybe that's not a terribly responsible way of doing things. Going and making a terrible, terrible error in judgment, terrible mistake. I stood up for freedom, what a bad move.
The nerve.
I mean, honestly, right? And the amount of abuse that I saw online after the fact that I was able to get back online, people making fun of me and making fun of my arrest or something like that. And honestly, I'm just thinking to myself, all these people are making fun of me, all these people giving me crap and stuff like that, the vast majority of them are going to be dead within the next couple of years. Myocarditis for you. Pericarditis for you. Bye-bye. Oh, I love it. Justice just served cold.
Oh, man. What do you say, Vinny? Should we wrap it up?
Oh, yeah.
It's getting kind of late for me, to be honest.
Sorry, that's my bad.
No, don't worry about it. I'm used to going, about almost 3 hours. It's okay. Not a problem at all. So you said that the appeals hearing is on July 31st. And in the meantime, what could people do, if anything, to help you?
Well, number one thing you can do that's real easy. Go to change.org and search up Billy TK or Vinny Eastwood. They'll come up with the same result. And there's a little petition there, Justice for Billy TK and Vinny Eastwood. If you can sign that, share that around, that would be lovely. Number two, we need some increased media exposure on this issue before we go to appeal. So that's within the next week or so. We need as many interviews as possibly can lined up to use whatever alternative media there is left to let people know about what's actually the real story here in New Zealand, because we've kind of it's a landmark case. Does New Zealand have freedom of speech and freedom of assembly, two very basic human rights, or are those gone now? All right, that's basically what hinges on our case. And so anybody who wants to suggest to your favorite host or suggest your favorite host to me, and go to the VinnyEastwoodShow.com and get that contact page there, that would be lovely. Thirdly, financial support is absolutely needed right now at this point. I mean, it would have been nice to have some money in the bank so that if I do go to prison, Rebecca will be taken care of and sort of safe money-wise for the period of time that I'm in there. And secondarily, if I am found innocent or don't have to go to jail and don't have to stop earning an income by telling the truth, which I'm still not sure how I've accomplished that, by the way. Anyway, then please go to vinnyeastwood.com. That's Vinny with a Y, because it's the most important question. And Eastwood, go ahead, make my news. And go ahead, make a donation there on the donate tab through PayPal, Kiwi Bank, or Patreon. And the last thing people can do to support us is to actually turn up on the day to the Auckland High Court at 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. I think about 10 a.m. is when we'll be headed in. And if you're in the alternative media, please live stream it. Please, that kind of thing. Whatever you can do. If you're overseas and somebody is live streaming it, please restream it. That kind of thing, because we need to show that there is support and that there is pressure on this particular situation. Because if we go down for this, it's going to be taken by the system as consent by everybody. Yeah, sure, we don't have any rights to freedom of speech or freedom of assembly anymore. Sure, that's fine. Fuck Billy, fuck Vinny, pieces of shit. Shouldn't have got himself arrested in the first place. I'm quite happy being a slave. If that's your attitude, please don't turn up. I mean, my thought is that if that is your attitude, turning up anywhere for any reason might not be on your list of priorities. Okay, but for those of you who do want to be free, who do want to live in a free country, the people who know what freedom means, is that if you don't hurt anybody, you don't damage any property, whatever you're doing is your right, and nobody has the right to tell you not to. Okay? If you believe in that true, unadulterated, dripping with honey freedom, if you like it and you think it's worth fighting for, if you think it's worth dying for, if you think that your children should grow up to be the best that they could ever be, to chart their own course through life without somebody telling them what they're allowed to read, who they're allowed to listen to, where they're allowed to go, who they can be friends with and who they can't be. If you don't want that, if you do want genuine liberty, that I would implore you to take an interest in myself and Billy TK's case against the government. They were trying to kill you. They were trying to enslave you. And we tried to stop them. And we failed. And if you fail to turn up to help us, then all of us will have a price and a consequence to pay for our apathy, for our ignorance, our laziness, and our cowardice, the 4 true horsemen of the apocalypse. I don't want this world to end in a fiery, dark cataclysm. I would prefer it to be bathed in light and the free flowing waters of freedom.
Well, Vinny, you got the universe on your side, brother. It's gonna turn out. It's gonna be good. You know, I really do think so. So,
all right, we'll put $20 on it. Just see how.
I feel like I don't know. There's so much more to say, but it is getting late. But I will pass the word around, and through this and through other mediums as well, and we'll make sure to get as much word about this out as possible. And hopefully some financial support comes your way as a result of the effort that you're putting forward to draw attention to just exactly what these people are doing. You weren't doing anything wrong. You were trying to help. You're trying to help everybody, except for one powerful organization called government. It's the only it's the only entity that you were offending truly, and they deserve to be offended. They deserve it. Fuck them. And but
yeah, like Prodigy said, fuck them and their law.
Yeah. Give us the old Vinny Eastwood send off, or the intro, the Vinny Eastwood show. It wouldn't be complete without it.
Okay. Thank you very much, ladies, gentlemen, fellow slaves of the global plantation. The Vinny Eastwood show is bad news. It's like the news, but worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child trafficking Satanists is Vinny's jokes.
Well, Vinny, I love you, brother, and I hope we get to talk again real soon. Okay.
All right. Cheers, bro. I'll see you in 3 months.
Yeah, you'll have to come back and tell us your stories and tell us how it went.
Yeah. Well, I went in there and I had 2 testicles, and
Oh God.
that's not the case anymore. It was one of the new laws that they passed when I was inside. I wasn't outside to protest it. That if you're a prisoner of the state for protesting, they could take your balls. So, yeah, that's it, everybody. Goodbye. This reminds me of my cat before we had him neutered. Because afterwards he has this very wussy meow. And some cats, they've got a kind of a bit of a masculine meow on him, but he didn't after it. It was like meow, it sounded like a woman complaining. But before that it was like meow. And it's just a sad thing to see people have their wings clipped, because it has the long, terrible, and lasting effect. But I just keep rambling on, and this show just keeps on going. And I'm very, very sorry about that, James. You've got to get to bed. Shut up, Vinny.
It's okay.
Shut up.
Yeah. And we'll see you again real soon, man. So thank you very much. Everyone out there, my name's James Cordiner. You've been listening or watching A Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth. Come over to my website, freeyourmindne.com. That's for Free Your Mind New England, and to just kind of stay on the up and up with what I've got going on over here in New Hampshire. The big things are coming down the pike here, and just want to make sure that I keep consistent with my roots and the podcasting and everything. So I'm very excited for the future and what that holds for all of us. And just, keep your eyes open out there and keep your ears up, and just try your best to don't steal, don't hurt anybody, and don't take their stuff. And until next time, I love you all. Have a great night.
Because there's a handful of people actually run everything. That's true. It's provable. Not
It's
conspiracy.
all about control. To them we just cattle, numbers, battling each other while they creeping in the shadows, scheming, plotting, clocking your every move, locked in your mind, brainwashed until it's rocking. Got the population operating as they want them, symbolically mocking them, thinking nothing can stop them. So open your eyes to the lies of the evil, the poison in the minds and the lives of your people. And every time they lead you down a line to deceive you, and by then it's always too late to see through the veil that they hide behind, cause your third eye is blind. Better take a stand, we running out of time. Ain't nobody coming to save us, fuck what you had in mind. Arm yourself with the truth and jump behind the battle line. Can we turn it around? Yeah, it's possible. Divided we'll all fall, but united we're unstoppable. This is for the world, this is for the masses, attached to the strings being pulled by puppet masters. This is for the youth, searching for the proof, keep on looking for the clues, I'll provide you with some truth. This is for the ones waking up from the spell, beginning to discover themselves. Yeah, this is for the youth,